New York Giants, Adam Schefter today said that the Giants wide receiver Malik Neighbors has not practiced in 11 days after dealing with what multiple sources told ESPN was a minor back problem. One source characterized it as, quote, normal camp tightness. I think this is slightly notable because Neighbors has quietly, and I think this has gone a little under-discussed, we certainly have not talked about it enough here on this show, has quietly been dealing with a lot of things. He is dealing with a lingering toe injury dating back to his days at LSU. He also kind of quietly admits that this might eventually require surgery. He also suffered a shoulder injury early in training camp. I have a potential galaxy brain take on this that I will get into in just a second, but it sort of relates to what I'm about to say here. And that, Boone, I feel like, look, if this was Bijan Robinson, hey, 3 injuries over the course of training camp and he's missed 11 days, I just kind of feel like we'd be talking about it a little bit more. So are you freaked out about this Malik Neighbors situation, the injuries, or is he not a guy that you're moving at this point?
I don't know about this one. I mean, obviously it isn't ideal, but doesn't it seem like Neighbors also has like a little bit of Allen Iverson in him, where it might be a situation where he just doesn't feel like he needs to practice? Because we saw this last year, like you said, a lot of injuries. The only one he actually missed time with was the concussion, and that's because he had no choice. Other than that, he played through the injuries. He produced through the injuries. It didn't really seem to be a problem. And I brought this up before. We've talked about some of the guys that are either star players or veteran players, and they have these injuries during the summer that keep them out and avoid some of those tough practices. And then sure enough, when the season comes back around, they show up, they ball out. I think that's probably going to be the case with Neighbors. I mean, it's definitely something we have to monitor. No question. We got to monitor. He's missed 11 days of practice. That is scary, but I'm not going to move him down that far at this point. I'm still more than willing to take him at the end of the first round. We know the kind of talent he is. We know the volume that he'll get. I don't like that these injuries are mounting, but this one I'm not that concerned about yet.
I'm not that concerned about it yet either. The only thing that kind of gives me pause is, one, I'm really high on Neighbors this year. I think he is a guy that I would take at the end of the first round. He's not currently like a consensus first round pick, although maybe this would make me break some ties against him at this point. But my galaxy brain theory on this, Boone, is that because the Giants basically, I joked about this last year, they weren't really running an NFL offense. They were running like a Malik Neighbors usage scam. 41% of the air yards, and he didn't even play a full season. 30% of the team targets, and he didn't even play a full season. As you mentioned, he missed a little bit of time with that concussion last year. And, he's used on these layup targets, like to get the ball in his hands quickly. I am really intrigued about I actually think that it might be nice for Neighbors if his overall target total came down and he was actually targeted on some deeper go and post routes, which we have seen Russell Wilson, to his credit, fling that football down the field in preseason week 2. We saw him really push it. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. My galaxy brain theory is that if Neighbors continues to get the sort of like high usage that we saw as a rookie, a guy that's not like the biggest player in the world either. He's not a small receiver, but he's not necessarily the thickest, most powerfully built player. I actually wonder if he could be like a running back where you do worry about the amount of times he is truly touching the football. But like I said, you could tell me that's stupid because I think it is kind of a galaxy brain take.
No, I definitely think there's something to that, but this is one where we're going to have to be closer to week 1 before I start to actually get worried about this. I just think he's going to end up playing. He's still young. I know the injuries are mounting, but I don't know. To me, this just seems like something where he's missing practice now, but he's still got time. And when we get closer to the season, it's not going to be a problem. Long-term career-wise, we're going to have to keep an eye on it, yes. But at the moment, I don't think we need to be too concerned.
Yeah, something to monitor, but maybe not freak out about just yet. Like let's hope that that's the last time I utter that galaxy brain Malik Neighbors running back, touches thing, that we never talk about it again. Something we have talked about all throughout August, and we've got to talk about it one more time, is Matthew Stafford's back. Talking about more backs here as we enter closer to week 1. Gary Klein of the LA Times, multiple people said this over the weekend, asked to confirm whether quarterback Matthew Stafford worked out as scheduled. A Rams official declined to comment and said Sean McVay would address the situation on Monday. I saw this tweet, this language of like Sean McVay would address this situation on Monday. I saw this Saturday night, maybe a little bit late, maybe it had a, big healthy dinner. Maybe was, not completely 100% sober at the time. But I remember seeing this, Boone, and just being like, yikes. I mean, just would address the situation on Monday. People listening to the podcast back, not the folks watching live, people listening to the podcast back on Monday will actually be in Monday. So maybe you've already heard whatever McVay is going to do to address the situation, but I'm really trying to not freak out about the Matthew Stafford thing, Boone, but they continue to say things like this, the immortal chamber, that maybe I'd be stupid to not freak out about it. So this new variable introduced into the Matthew Stafford back saga that has been our lives in August and late July here, Boone, just give me the state of the state. How are we feeling about this?
I mean, we're not doing panic meter yet, but like panic meter, we're getting into it now. We're getting into the red a little bit here, right? Like this has to be something that we're worried about. And it's exactly what you said. It's the way they're talking about it. We've referred to this when the Texans talk about Joe Mixon's injury and they're so weird and cagey about it. And now the Rams are starting to be like that with Stafford, where it seems like they almost don't want anyone to ask about it. And maybe that's because they don't know. Like some of these back injuries, it could be day to day. It could be him trying to figure out and them sort of testing it in different ways. And they'll just have to see how he responds. But yeah, when they give these set time, okay, he's going to throw this day and then he doesn't. And now they're talking about it like this. It's not really for Stafford that we're worried fantasy-wise, because Stafford would need to put up a huge season, right? A quarterback like him at his age, he would need, a huge yardage total, a huge touchdown total to be considered as a, top 12 starter in regular fantasy leagues. So he's more of like a low-end QB2 option for fantasy. The real concern is, what do you do with the other guys in that offense? Puka Nacua, at this point, I'm willing to move him down a little bit, and I'm going to do a rankings update Monday. Amon-Ra St. Brown, much safer pick at this point, I think. Brian Thomas Jr., I would take him. And now we're even getting into maybe like Ashton Genty over him. I think I would. Drake London, that volume Drake London's going to get, I think he could have a Puka Nacua type season, and he doesn't have this weird quarterback situation hanging over him. So that's where I'm starting to get with Puka Nacua. That's pushing him into the second round. It's still not over. It's still Stafford could show up before the season and everything's fine and this offense keeps rolling. But I am willing to bump Puka down a little bit. The guy I'm even more worried about is Devon Achan, because Devon Achan shows up with a new team. You want him to get that time with his new quarterback. You want them to be prepping for the season, and he's not getting that time. And in fact, he's getting his old pal Jimmy Garoppolo out there, and the reports in camp are saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is doing the same thing and throwing him hospital balls, and Devontae Adams is getting lit up a little bit there. We know that's not going to make him happy. And that makes me concerned that, if Stafford's out there, who's going to take the hit? Is it going to be Puka Nacua? A little bit. But is it going to be that second receiver, Devontae Adams? For sure. And then Kyren Williams too, right? Kyren Williams, where's the concern there? This is a guy that really lives off the scoring, the touchdown scoring in this offense, the success of that offense. If you don't have Stafford out there and you have Jimmy Garoppolo, or there's been talk, do they go after a Kirk Cousins if Stafford's not going to be available? And again, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on this, but an older version of Kirk Cousins or this version of Jimmy Garoppolo, it's really bad news for this offense. I think Puka Nacua could get by, but man, I would be worried about Kyren Williams dropping down a few spots and Devontae Adams definitely dropping down.
I just am uncomfortable with how much this is all sort of reminding me of the 2022 season. And that's been sort of my fear with this Matthew Stafford thing, is that we've seen almost this exact story happen before with this team, where Stafford is managing an injury all summer. That was the elbow. It wasn't the back then. He was managing an elbow injury coming off the Super Bowl run. There were questions along the offensive line. If this offensive line is healthy and it's out there, it's not foolproof, right? They have issues at center. Left tackle Eric Jackson does have the blood clot things, but we'll see what's going on there. Again, it's not a flawless offensive line, but it doesn't look as bad on paper as that unit did back in 2022, to be fair. But also, they signed a veteran X receiver. That year was Allen Robinson, who was having a great training camp, right? There was a bunch of reports, Allen Robinson having this great training camp. My guy, Allen Robinson, geez, God almighty. And it was like, but you kind of forget that John Wolford was the guy throwing him the football because Stafford wasn't throwing in camp. You come out week one, those guys were reading off a totally different sheet from one another. And I think Adams, even at a more advanced age than Robinson was at that point, obviously Robinson had hit the age cliff and had fallen off of it. Adams hasn't shown those same signs, but you just never know with an older receiver. And also, again, he's not had a lot of time to build up a lot of timing and chemistry with Matthew Stafford at this point. And again, in that first chapter of that 2022 Rams season, Cooper Kupp was able to survive because he got all those like designed layup targets, which I think Puka will as well. But yeah, the similarities are a little troubling that we've seen this like, and to your point, like, oh yeah, Matthew Stafford comes back, we're probably fine. But it's less to me about whether Matthew Stafford comes back week 1, and it's more about, is Matthew Stafford participating come week 13, 14, 15, 16, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. And back injuries are that kind of weird injury that can pop up at any moment. And during the season, it could look real good for 4 weeks, and he takes the wrong hit. And at his age too, right? Like, he is going to take shots. There's no doubt about that. Doesn't matter how good the offensive line is. He is going to have to hold up against some big hits at some point. And that gets very, very scary. It's like a weird game of Russian roulette that you're going to have to play fantasy-wise throughout the season if you have any of these Rams players.
Yeah, I definitely like the way you frame that as some of those safer picks at the 1-2 turn. I would definitely take them over Puka, and definitely, Devontae Adams is a guy that I'm not really drafting wide receivers in that range. He's not making it any more interesting to draft wide receivers in that like rounds 3 to 4 range, because he's someone that definitely could exceed that ADP, but I don't know. Again, hopefully by August 25th we feel a lot better, but I keep saying that, and it keeps getting closer to August 25th, and I'm not feeling any better. Something else that doesn't make me feel great is NFL Network's Cameron Wolf reports that Dolphins running back Devon Achan has a soft tissue lower body injury that will keep him out between, quote, days and weeks. Love that. Big difference between days and big difference between weeks, but they are 2 periods of time. Mike McDaniel told reporters in Detroit this. McDaniel also indicated he's not concerned about Achan's availability week 1 versus the Colts. This makes me concerned to read. I don't love to read soft tissue lower body about a guy that is going, if not at the end of the first round, very early in the second round. So Boone, he's another guy that I think I'm going to bump some of those wide receivers you just talked about behind ahead of Achan in my overall rankings. And I've been kind of waffling between Ashton Genty and Achan as my 5th or so running back right now. This definitely makes me just push to the guy that's a little bit healthier. Do you think that's an overreaction?
I don't. I would even go maybe even a little bit further at this point with like saying Drake London, like I just talked about, Chase Brown, who I'm very high on. Like, what's that different between Chase Brown and Achan at this point? And we've talked before about all the red flags in Miami this year. It's not just this injury, which is the latest one now. And it doesn't sound like he's going to miss a ton of time, even if he did maybe show up for week 1 and wasn't ready. Doesn't sound like it's something that's going to last too far into the season. But the Tyreek Hill situation and his kind of weirdness all off season long, and the offensive line's not great, and we could just see this thing kind of falling apart pretty quickly this year. I think it could go off the rails. I've already been worried about that. When you throw this injury into the mix, that makes me want to push Achan down into like the mid-second round, maybe even a little bit later. I'm going to have to go over the rankings tonight. Like I said, the rankings update will be live on Monday. But it's to the point where I'm kind of shying away from almost every Dolphin. And I will say it helps that I did get a lot of Achan and Waddle earlier in the offseason. So I have the shares. I don't need to invest more at this point. I think I'm good. I don't want any more. I'm hoping those shares can still come through for me. But I'm very, very worried about this one.
If Achan does miss any time, Jalen Wright would be the first man up, but he has not had a very good preseason. He's kind of getting some push from Ollie Gordon. So Ollie Gordon is definitely a name to know and continue to track over the next couple weeks, as Achan might miss some practice time. Unfortunately, one other very highly drafted player in fantasy also dealing with a soft tissue injury. Head coach, I love this quote. Head coach Kevin O'Connell, when asked if Justin Jefferson, who has been dealing with a hamstring injury, will practice this week, quote, "He's definitely going to hopefully start doing more and more. I can't say what that's going to look like from a practice standpoint yet." That sounds like something stupid I would say if I was trying to get out of like answering a question. Is he's definitely going to hopefully do something. It definitely means he's going to do it. Hopefully means he might do it. So Boone, are you definitely moving Justin Jefferson down your rankings, or are you hoping that you see him practice sometime the next couple of days?
I might be foolish on this one. I'm still not that concerned. I think from the get-go, they've just acted like they're being cautious about this one. And listen, maybe I'm being too chill. Maybe this time of year, I'm a little tired and I'm just not getting animated about this like I should. But, Jefferson is the franchise guy. They know that. They also know that Jordan Addison's going to miss 3 games with a suspension. They also know that Jalen Naylor's actually banged up right now, too, their third guy.
Yeah.
would they not be going out and signing people? Like, if they were that concerned about Jefferson, I feel like they'd be making some moves here to get guys in that could potentially
That's a good
start
point.
for them in week one. They haven't done anything like that. So I don't think they're that worried about it. I think fantasy managers, you just have to make a decision risk wise what you want to do. And it's close enough in that first round that if you want to go with Jahmyr Gibbs, if you want to go with CD Lamb over him, that's fine. Like, none of those guys are bad picks. They're all going to be great this year. So I don't have any issues with that whatsoever. But I think Jefferson will be out there week one, and I think he's going to be okay. I think they're just slow playing this. But I will say, I said similar things last year about Christian McCaffrey's situation. And then in week one, we got the big reveal that, hey, that injury was a little worse than we thought. And his whole season got derailed. So I realized there's a chance that I could get the rug pulled out from under me here. But based on reading the tea leaves, and like I said, them not going out and getting anybody else, I think Jefferson's going to be okay.
That's a good way of reading into it, and I hope that, again, we just get clean reports throughout the rest of like we get something. He definitely, not definitely, hopefully, but he definitely practices this week and continues to stack some good moments together before week one. Last thing before we throw to break here, and we don't have to follow up on this. I just want to make people aware. Quentin Johnson and Jalen McMillan left their games in the preseason with injuries. So Keandre Lambert-Smith, Trey Harris are important to track in Los Angeles, but hopefully Quentin Johnson, really scary hit. Hopefully he is okay after that. Jalen McMillan, it's just more and more opportunity for Emeka Egbuka, but that was another scary head neck injury there. So keep an eye on those guys as they're late round flyers, deeper best ball picks. But if they miss any time at the beginning of the season, there are some young players that can certainly benefit. Some rookies there specifically that could benefit from early playing time.